Can you explain to listeners about SGG? I don't know, Performance Asia.
We're just SG.
Sorry, mate. I don't know how many G's are in it. Just SG. Well, it used to be SG golf coaching, so I don't know, and it was just G's everywhere.
Yes.
Can you tell me what it's about?
So SG golf coaching is just my personal brand, which you'll find on my website, you'll find on Instagram and my socials. So, and it's always been like my personal brand. I've kept that. SG Performance is just a subsidiary of that, which is, if you like, starting my own setup here in Malaysia, my own coaching center, if you want to call it academy, just call it SG Performance, but essentially it's a first facility. I have 3.5 coaches under me, so 3 full-time coaches and a half, and it sounds a bit funny. Half.
What's that? Half monkey, half human? Is that what's going on here?
And it's a brand that I'll be able to blanket multiple facilities over, either in Malaysia or outside of Malaysia. So if you like SG Performance, it's just an umbrella that is going to allow me to set up, let's say, multiple facilities in the region. With the goal of training coaches under me, essentially sharing all of my insights over the last 25 years and allow them to become, let's say, the coach or the instructor that they want to be. There's no, my idea is to really let them grow at their own pace, give them any tools that they need or want based on, all the knowledge that I have. And, if they want to, if it's an expat that's coming in or it's a local coach, the opportunity is there for them to come and teach out of Malaysia or probably in the near future some neighbouring countries as well.
And is there any opportunities for, like, should coaches just keep their ears peeled or eyes peeled, whatever it is, keep their ears open, eyes peeled? There's going to be opportunities for coaches in the future listening?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a nice little list already because we have a facility that's it's probably going to be finished by about this time next year, maybe the end of this year, perhaps, with a little bit of luck. So that'll be a new range, with fully built out. So there'll be at least 3 or 4 instructors that will need to go in there for sure. Because we have the current facility now, which is just out of KL, it's pretty much downtown area where you see us hitting balls in the water. And potentially there's going to be some overseas opportunities as well. So I've always got a short list. There's some guys who have been at me for quite a while. They're in, some of them are in positions in different places, and we'll just see what the situation is going to be sort of towards the middle of this year to the end of the year. But definitely open, and I'll have a lot of coaches reach out. I mentor coaches like you do, and they're usually the ones I'd go to first because we share the same ideas, and they've learned a lot of my concepts around teaching and coaching. And I like the idea of it's hard to recruit, but I like the idea of students, professional students, amateur students that have turned professional, haven't made it, coming on board, because there's such a good history there and such a good connection. And they kind of have a feel for what I already do, through our coaching and whatnot. And, they can just sit in and shadow 3 or 6 months. And I found that to be almost like the best recipe so far, because the guys underneath me are all my former students that have turned coaches like we did back in the day.
Yeah, I would agree. That sometimes I listen to some of my good players who have hung out for a long time talk, and it makes me proud. It's like, I get it. I hear the way that they might be playing with some friends or hitting some stuff next door when I'm teaching. I hear their words and their conversations, and because we hear stuff at driving ranges, just people just talking shit, right? Trying to help each other and just shit, right? And everyone's heart's in a good place, but which probably takes us into our next subject area, right? But before I get into that, right, are you going to create a certification at all?
So currently through my website, I do have 2 coaching series that I delivered in Malaysia during COVID.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a certification, but it's certainly a decent amount of my thoughts and ideas, certainly at the time. I'm in the midst of,
Yep.
revamping some of that because I wouldn't say there's new information necessarily coming out that I want to put in, but just trying to organize it in a way that I think gives the coach the best structure on how to deliver a lesson.
Okay.
As we know, there's often, we often have lots of technical buckets that we fill very early on in coaching, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
All these knowledge buckets, but the structure and the delivery of that knowledge is often not taught. And I know that that's an area I want to dive a little bit more into, with the coaches that I work with, both online and offline. So I don't believe I'll put a certification together, but we'll revamp a lot of, my information, and that will go kind of onto my website. So, I'll get rid of a little bit of the stuff on there and just reorganize a little bit. So, if a coach is starting their journey or they're in the middle of it, they know exactly where to look for. And, some coaches know their weaknesses and some don't, and sometimes we have to spell it out to them. But and we've all made mistakes over the years, which we'll probably talk a little bit about. But I feel like the structure of the lesson and delivery, which can take different forms for sure, is something that I'm trying to dive into a little bit more and have down as a bit of a roadmap for the student to deliver. Sorry, for the coach to deliver to the student.
Yeah, no, I would agree with this, and this is something that I guess Hugh Maher is also, pushing quite hard. His work with Andreas as well around about the coaching aspect side of it. And everyone's got their strengths, right? Some people are just fantastic biomechanics. Some people, fantastic at just kind of data stuff with, say, TrackMan. And some people are really, really good at articulating information or what they want that student to do, right? And I think a lot of us who are coaches are kind of natural born teachers. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, where we come from a place where we want to share some stuff that we know, and we like educating people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like they're also some of the best coaches. And if they can just get their information organized a bit better and how they deliver it, they can do a really good job. You know what I mean? In regards to what they're doing. And I find the other people who are really good, let's call it biomechanics or, sciencey type of stuff, or using a bit of 3D, that they could probably have some help with how to process that information that they've got in their complex brains. You know what I mean? So it's about kind of meshing that together. And my wife she talks about a story, about, I used to take the kids, right? I used to drive them home after teaching them when I was, call it in my young 20s, right? Like the 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds who'd stay back after work, and we'd just do heaps of work, right? And when they got their L's, I'd let them drive the car, right? And so I'd check with the parents, obviously, and I'd go teach them how to reverse park on the way home. I'd go, pull into the park here. We'd pull into the park, and I'd teach them how to park the car. And my wife goes, "You've always been so patient with people like that, and in regards to that kind of coaching." So I guess I've always been that education myself. They're not trying to pump my tires up, but they're kind of understanding and separating all the different types of teachers there, right? Now, let's get away from parking cars. You sent me, I said to you, SG, what do you want to talk about, brother? And you said, let's talk about something that could be a bit boring, but let's kind of subject a little bit. And you mentioned lesson flow, communication, importance of learning environment, and overcoaching, which is, it makes me cringe because I was there. Right. Now, we're not all robots. Yeah. I'm going to throw the subjects at you, and I want you to kind of talk to me about it and what they mean to you. So, to tie a bow off what we're talking about before, to come into this new subject, lesson flow, what does that mean?
So for me, it's having, let's say, a structure around lesson delivery. And this is, again, not information-centric so much, but it's just being organised, with the start and the end of a lesson. And certainly repeat students are going to be somewhat different to a new student. And I've tried to create some, if you like, acronyms around this, especially when I'm working with other coaches. So I've got IED plus ARS, AARS.
Okay, good.
So for me,
run it through me.
A lot of the phase 1 process is identify, explain, and demonstrate. So IED, and obviously that can take many forms, but we're identifying what we want to work on with the student based on what they're doing.
And would you do that through an analysis of their swing on an iPad?
Yeah, exactly. So that can take on many forms. We have our data. At the deepest level, we might have data collection, be that a radar that's there, be that perhaps 3D if we have that. For me, it's usually just video with the TrackMan running in the background. That's more than enough for most students, and I can coach off that. So that's the identification process. And I don't always do it exactly in this order. Sometimes I don't explain to the student, as in, okay, let's split the screen. Let's maybe identify a few points. I'll do that in different ways. I might do that with me explaining, or I might give them the mic and say, "What do you see?" And that's often more powerful, because as long as I zone in on the area, so I might widen the screen and they can only see their lower body, or I might widen the screen and they can only see their grip, or I might widen the screen to just see their feet. And I'll do that and just say, "What do you see different?" And so it's kind of empowering them, through that process. We're getting into the learning versus telling. Teaching isn't telling, and listening isn't learning. So we're getting them to figure it out, or at least understand that visually. So that's, part of the explanation process. I'll do that different ways. Sometimes I'll skip that, and, I might just get into a little bit of demonstration. I might get into, okay, I might explain, this is what we're doing, or you understand this is what you're doing, this is the ball flight you're getting. What might that look like if the ball went left? Like, what might the grip position look like, or the club face position look like? So there's different ways of doing that. Sometimes with the Western world, I can go down that, style of delivery, if you like. Sometimes if the English comprehension is not as good, I've just got to get into, okay, let's do this because we understand that we're trying to change this picture, so to speak. So that's kind of like one of the phases.
Yeah. And I want to add a piece to that, right? Is that, let's just talk about like P5.5, right? Where we see that kind of shaft orientation in the downswing and the club face orientation. I might say to the student, what do you think that's going to happen? Where do you think that club's going to go? Say they're really steep and outside.
Sure.
Like, what do you think is going to happen there? And they'll be like, well, that's going to go across the ball. Okay, great. Do you understand how the ball spins? I do. And I'll use a soccer ball analogy.
Sure.
How do you curve the soccer ball this way? And so that's a time when you talk about asking the question. I think it's just something come to my mind there about using that situation there. And it's like, if we had that orientation more here, you might see the ball go more to the right, and push swing direction to the right. Like, oh, I get you. So that I understand what you're talking about there. So, all right, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So what
IED.
What you're really, I guess, reiterating there is the suggestive approach versus direct approach, which I flip between the two. So suggestive is definitely, I feel like it helps the student to get confidence, because you're asking the question, and it's surprising, even with, I use the word IQ a lot, even with students that have a fairly low IQ, they're fairly new to the game or whatever. It's surprising how often, if you give them, they've got 3 options, it's surprising how often they're able to guess that right option, or they understand that that's, it makes sense. And if it doesn't, then that gives us an opportunity to demonstrate why, maybe change the concept through what you said, and then, we just keep moving forward, versus a direct approach, which is often just, do this because the picture says that and we know it's going to help. And there's nothing wrong with that, because, sometimes students just aren't going to be able to go through that process for whatever reason.
Yeah, I like it. Okay.
So phase 2 is the
IED.
The arse.
Yeah.
So it's
This is my favourite bit, I reckon.
Yeah, the double ARS, and I've written here: adopt, adapt, repeat, and summarize.
Okay.
So we're adopting.
Interesting.
Yeah, to the demonstration, getting them to adopt and adapt. You could probably flip those around, but basically it's just taking them through, let's say, the learning or development phase. Now that can be an absolute rabbit hole, and that's where it's the coach's decision on what they want to do. Do they take them out of the box, which is the square that we do the lesson in, and they move them into a corner, which is part of how I feel learning can really be accelerated, and it's, I guess, why I went with performance, because trying to create a little performance mindset and area within the teaching space to pull them away from the distraction of the golf ball and the teaching mat and all that sort of stuff, so that I can get them to adapt to what we've spoken about, what the game plan is, and adopt to that particular movement. And that phase can take certainly a long time. I find that the more clarity they have in phase 1, the easier it is to move to phase 2. And I was speaking about this to one of my coaches recently. He's like, it was 37 minutes in and you hadn't done anything yet. He's like, you guys were still like talking. And he said, but that 12 minutes, he said it was like everything changed and you kind of nailed whatever you had discussed. He said, I find myself getting in early and then I kind of almost overloading the student and things get a little bit messy. So I think the first phase is really important. Now, often with repeat students, we're just jumping straight into phase 2 because we have the roadmap in place for sure. But that's usually, I guess, the way I look at things. And then, repeat and summarize. We're often just repeating and we're going through. Sometimes we have to go back to adaptation, because maybe I wouldn't say our game plan was off, but whatever we got them to do, we need to find a different way to explain it or deliver it. And I love what Cam Smith called them plays. He might have up his sleeve 5 different plays for a certain movement. And I think the good coaches can, we're talking about shifting patterns here. The good coaches can often, they come up with a really cool play that can shift 3 or 4 areas and the student didn't even realize what the hell happened. And then we summarize. We summarize either through video or, seeing that ball flight do a certain thing is, indirect summarizing. But we give them a way to practice it. But this is where it becomes so important at the start of the lesson to not rush the early stages, because if that player, let's talk about P5.5, shafts too steep and too open, right? That's our goal, right? We want to get that shallower club face, more square. If that player has such a very, very good understanding of what that looks like and where we want it to look like, and if we can continue to what I call test what we tried, right? But as long as the player knows that's my goal is to have that looking like this. Yep. Now, we might try, like you said about 5 plays there, we might try strategy 1, right? Now, the reason why good coaches, as Foley says, they generally get it right the first time, right? But yesterday I had a guy and I never seen him before and it just wasn't working straight away, right? I said, this is not working. So come over here, show it on camera. Our goal is not achieved at all, right? Now, I want you to understand that's still our goal. We're going to do X. Yep. Completely forget about what I told you before, but we're going to X. But that didn't mean that the goal had changed and he was fucking overloaded with information. Sure. I just had to reiterate the new desired movement I wanted him to make or change or drill or exercise, with still keeping in mind what our goal was, and just completely changed direction and then just fucking bang, started flushing it. I was like, thank fuck. We usually get it right the first time. Yeah. But the good news is that I didn't just say do this and then do that. Sure. It's that he came, looked at the iPad and went, yeah, you're right. Our numbers aren't shifting on the quad. We're not right here.
I agree with you. I'm on board, Toby. So come to the corner. Let's get in front of the mirror. Brrr, shuffle around. New mindset.
Yeah.
You know, what do you do for work again? Where are you working? You know, kind of just restart again.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, did you get a coffee upstairs? How good is it? And then boom, straight in again. Let's clear it up. So, and giving yourself that time. Anyways, I went off a bit of a tangent there, but
absolutely.
I understand
makes complete sense.
Where you're coming from.
I agree.
That's and I had a lesson the other day with a guy who was I could tell that golf was his last thing. Like he tried, musician, very, very
okay.
But no good at sports. Never was.
Right.
Told me straight up. Never good at sports. Watched him have a couple of practice swings, and I thought, man, I don't think this guy even knows if he's right-handed or left-handed. You know, but there was absolutely like the wrong arm was bent, the other arm straight. You know, that whole type of situation.
Should be a lefty.
I was going, oh man, are you lefty? Throw the ball righty or lefty? You know, but there was no point in him hitting a golf ball for over half an hour. I'm going to say he hit 10 balls the whole time.
Sure.
There was no point because I was just going to watch him fucking miss it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just going to fucking miss it the whole time. So I get you. All right, let's move on. Communication's the next subject area you told me. Let's dive into that subject.
Yeah, just on that point as well, and this is just a good way to think about it because, again, this is a little bit more around for the coaches. What you said, if something I learned years ago, you know, if you're trying to get the player to do something and they're struggling, first thing you do is take the ball away. Yep. Next thing you do is take the club away. And then you put them in an environment where you can get them to move. Sometimes I'll take the arms away. So, you know, what do you need to take away to get them to move better first? And then from there we start layering, you know, the arms back on, holding the club, the ball, like all that sort of stuff to swing the ball. So that can be a good progression. Like you said, it's like, well, this isn't going well, so you probably have to just quickly shift the delivery and the learning environment had to change really, really fast.
And there's no point in a golf ball if the practice swing's not in the right spot. Like, if you're watching them getting ready, you know what I mean? Like if you've showed them how to move and you've done the identification and you get them onto the mat, I get the camera, film the practice swing, and they go, I'll just run straight in. Nah, sorry, mate. Yeah. Well, not like in that language, but like, let's talk about it again because this is not even right yet. So there's no point in hitting the ball. All right, communication. Can you talk to me about what this means?
VAC.
Is this your acronym thing?
VAC. Have a go at it.
All right, run me through it.
Have a go at it. VAC.
VAC.
Let's just say it's based on the senses, and it's 3 of them.
Something about vocabulary? Is it?
Yeah. Visual,
vocabulary.
Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, VAC. So that's, you know, they're the 3 main senses that, you know, we use for communication. You know, the others not so much. Yeah, we're not generally teaching with smell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So, so that's, you know, that's the staple of communication for sure. And again, the challenge sometimes with golf coaches, we have these buckets of information that we've either learned, knowledge buckets. They're completely filled, and we just feel like sometimes we're having to spit a lot of that knowledge out to the student. But you know, you and I know that we're, to some extent, I would say we're not there to educate a student like we're trying to educate golf coaches. You know, the information that we need to deliver to them has to be very relative to them, very concise and precise, so, you know, we're able to kind of shift their thoughts and their movements. So we have to be, again, very, very careful with what we feed them. You know, relevant, digestible information is important. You know, sometimes students will even ask me a question which is more of a question that I might get from a golf coach. And I have to figure out, in that moment, is it important for them to know that? Or do I dismiss it because it's actually just going to, let's say, add more on top of what I've already told them, which actually in that moment is not going to help them. So I have to be, you know, quite cognizant to say, it's a great question, but we don't need to go there right now. We need to focus on these 2 points. So I think communication, there's lots of stuff around communication, but for me, it's tapping into to some extent their learning style. I had a guy the other day, every second word is feel. I feel this and I do that. And I quickly realized, that type of student, if you are that type of student, it's hands and feet, connection to the ground and hands to the club. They're the two connections in golf. And often you have to talk about what are we feeling in our feet, what's happening with the hands, club face, all that sort of stuff. Because when you start to get them to move their body, it's like they can't feel it. And so we have to go down lower, to what are we feeling in our feet. There's that old drill, where golfers used to hit balls with their shoes off and that sort of stuff because there's a lot of sensors there. So I don't do that, but all I'm saying is we have to tap in sometimes to the student's learning style. If you're working with a student, I was working with one student, very good golfer, 4 or 5 handicap that's slightly older, and he's just trying to stay in the game and keep breaking 80. And I'd take video and I'd walk over, and he kind of almost was dismissive when I brought the video over, and I quickly he doesn't want to see the video. He doesn't care. And I just put I didn't show him the video the whole time. And it was all about, okay, we want to move the club into this area because it's getting he's a little bit into in. He's just like push drawing the ball and just leaving the face way open. So, I just created a feel for him of this is basically the direction we want to swing in. This is what we want to set up our alignment. So, in that pure sense, you have to cater for the student and be able to communicate your message to them, because not all are going to respond the same way. And you have to be very cognizant of their behavior, like how are they responding? You have to know when to move on, when are they getting bored, when do we need to switch into the next idea, or sometimes they just have to stay in it because this is going to be the best thing for them. So those are a couple of things around communication, and it's such a rabbit hole, and I couldn't spend the next 2 hours talking about that and still be going. But it's that's some of the ideas on it anyway.
I've had 10 things come to my head that I could talk about, but it's. I think what's really important there when I hear you talking about that, right? I'm going to use the term. People need to find out how they best learn. Now, what I mean by that is that some people, want a 10-minute analysis. Some people are best to not see their swing on camera. Right. Some people want to be told exactly why they need to do something, and some people just want to be told to do something, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying the person knows how they best optimize their performance, but you need to find out how you best learn, not what you want to know. Because some people, I had a guy come back to me and said, Toby, I reported this the other day on the podcast about how he said, Toby, I know I used to send you fucking 10 voice messages and ask you 15,000 questions, and my brain went nuts. I said, I knew it would, Carl, but I just told you don't need to know this stuff.
Sure.
And he goes, now, he come back at Christmas time and he goes, Toby, arms in the air, you got the wheel, just tell me what to do.
Awesome.
And we're killing it. We're killing it. But he worked out how he best learnt, and how he was trying to learn before wasn't right. Now, us coaches, we can ask the questions, but you need to find out, if you're the player, how you best learn. And if you've taken instruction, I think it's a very important question. Have you taken instruction before in anything? Like when you play professional sports, did you take instruction, or how do you take instruction? How do you like authority? Tell me about learning environment. Next subject area.
Yeah, so learning environment, I guess we've touched on a little bit, but it's, I've got a new coach starting with me. She's just shadowing, but already we've started to have some inquiries coming for her, and she's just watching and going through all of my stuff online and shadowing, and she's going to be getting a lot of newbie golfers. And so we had an inquiry come through, and I said, look, I'll do the first handful of lessons with you, and you can see how nervous she was. Just the thought of having to do her first.
Like she's a brand new coach.
Brand new coach, yeah, just come out of college, turned pro.
Okay.
And that raw, and because I think it's very different when you're at the range and you're messing around with your friends and all of a sudden you're in an environment that's, you know, set up for coaching, and she's around coaches already for the last, let's say, few weeks, and then you're going to get thrown in the deep end and have to deliver to a paying student. That can be.
Do you think that, have you looked into, not telling you what to do, but have you looked into it, that will her performance be optimized with you there or not?
I think that'll be challenging, without a doubt. But I would probably lead most of that, to be fair. But the main point of me explaining that is, let's say even if I'm not there, she would still be crapping herself. And I said to her,
I was not for my first lesson.
What about the student that's coming for the lesson that's a new golfer? How intimidated would they be? She's like, oh. I said, they're going to be way more nervous, way more intimidated, because they're coming to an experienced person in this environment that, you know, we're trying to make as coachable as possible. You know, the learning environment, hopefully, you know, we feel safe and everyone is, you know, pleasant and nice when the people walk in and all that sort of stuff. So that, you know, we're just trying to create a nice atmosphere when the student walks in, because they're going to be more nervous than the coach. And for me, it's just creating a nice ambience around the place that they can feel relaxed. And the conversation that we're having with them beforehand, I think, is super important. You know, just, you know, even for somewhat of a, you know, experienced golfer that maybe they're trying to break 100, but, you know, say less experienced in that sense. You know, I sometimes just walk out of my academy for 5 minutes, go fill up my water bottle while they're warming up. I might even leave the camera running while I'm doing that. And I'll just say, well, you know, I'm just not even going to look at the first 10 swings you make. You just warm up, do what you need to do. And sometimes I'll just leave, you know, just to make sure that they're a little less edgy, that I'm not eyeballing them all the time, or I'll be in the back pretending I'm setting something up, or, you know, getting organized even though I'm completely organized. Just that. And I feel, you know, the way that I've set up my training space, I can very quickly move the student away from the box there and take him into a space which I feel like is a really nice space to learn. They can see themselves in the mirror. So there's that part there, which is more of the, I guess, you trying to get the students into a relaxed learning state, because often they're not. They're very edgy. And then there's the other phase, which is moving them away from the golf ball, say, learning environment, where I know that we can get good work done. So that's a little bit on the, let's say,
that's so important. I reckon once a day I'll ask someone, are you nervous? Like when they're hitting some shots when they're warming up. And I say it. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
I say, don't be. I say, mate, you're the second best player I've had today. You know, I say, I've seen everything. I always say, I have seen everything, and nothing ever surprises me. And I'll often say to the fact of, I want you to know that I prefer to hang out with you than a know-it-all 2 marker. I'll just say something like that, right? Like I'll say, I prefer to hang out with you than a know-it-all 5 handicap, or something like that, right? Just to kind of clear the air. I say, you right now are the most important person, and I'm glad you're here to hang out. And just make them feel comfortable. You know, like trying to make them think that it's completely normal to hit it into the fence. And I'll show them a video of Rory McIlroy hitting a shank, which I got on my phone, right? I show them all the time. Rory McIlroy hitting a shank. And I just say, I'll often say to them, are you nervous? Don't be nervous. I said, I'm the one that needs to be nervous. I've got to fix you. You know, like just joke around with them a little bit. And one perspective I had with Craig, I played with Craig Parry for the first time, right? I got to play with him quite a few times. And I said, Craig, I'm so nervous. And he goes, why are you nervous? He goes, I'm supposed to be good. I'm supposed to kick your ass. You shouldn't be nervous. I'm nervous you're going to beat me. It was really funny, I thought. I thought that was really funny. He goes, you don't have to play good.
Yeah. He was a great little player. But two of the techniques that I use would be always start with positives. You know, I'm trying to point something out in the student that they do well.
Yeah.
whether that's a setup characteristic or a backswing. And something I do through the analysis process, which is a bit of backtracking on what we said, I would often score them out of 10 for basically 3 areas of the swing. The starting position, how they move the club to the top, and let's say their impact, if you like, to finish characteristics. And I'll often say, like, you're a 7.5 out of 10 here, which is that's solid. We don't have to worry. This is good. You're a 8.5 here, but you're like a 4 over here. So this is the area we're going to spend the most time. So all of a sudden, at least in their head, we've chunked some areas, and they're like, okay, well, this is pretty good, and that area is good. So I've just got to kind of get this area nailed down. So because I don't really know, and then we can dial in exactly on how we're going to tackle that area.
I'll do that. I love that. I do it into body pivot and arm structure.
Right.
I'll say your body pivot's as good as any 10 handicapper I've seen today.
Yeah.
But we need to teach you how to grip the club.
Right.
And I'll often go that way. And I'll sorry for my students listening, but I'll always say, it's not that bad. You're pretty good.
Right.
Like, this is actually a really good golf swing. It's just in the wrong spot. I'll always say every lesson.
Yeah.
Every lesson. This is actually really, I say, you actually do a lot of things really, really well. Don't worry about it. We'll fix this. Easy. Come over here. And it's like, you can see them just, oh, thank fuck. Because we all know you can shank it and hit it, make a good golf swing.
100%.
All right. Talking about overcoaching.
Wait.
Next subject, Aaron.
Wait.
I keep forgetting about these acronyms.
I think you like this
All
one.
right. Throw it at me. Wait.
Why am I talking?
Oh, so good.
From a coach's standpoint,
So good.
It's often over delivery.
Guilty.
And in the context of what they need to know, do they need to know it? So being very, very choice with the words, like as you're speaking, and I know Hugh spoke about this in a context of, once it comes out of your mouth, you have no control over that information anymore. They're going to process it as they think that they should or they need to. So, and I think that this is where the first part is like very, very important, because when we get a good understanding of where they're at and identify what they need to do, when we do talk, it should again be very, very precise and very relevant to what we want them to do, like what's the next step forward. And if we, it's not that I don't like to talk during a lesson. Sometimes I tell myself to, I do say wait to myself. I think, why am I talking? But there's a lot of good discussion, and that doesn't necessarily mean I'm bombarding them with information, and we're just discussing. It's like healthy conversation. But when it's time to give them an area or a focus or a command, that's where I think about that wait acronym, if you like, and make sure that what I am telling them is very relevant, and that's it. And there'll be a lot of silence sometimes during my lessons. I know some of the coaches that come and watch me would just be like, he's not really doing anything.
I've been.
So,
KG tells me all the time.
And I feel like sometimes coaches feel like they need to be talking or saying something all the time. Otherwise, they're uncomfortable. But, give the students a chance to receive it, understand it, maybe respond to it. And certainly from once we move into the phase of getting them to, adopt the movement and adapt that to hitting the ball, give them a chance. I'm not saying, I'm a bit of a believer like you, like if something's not working early, but let them do it a few times first before, we decide to comment or jump in. And certainly if the movement's not heading in the right direction, we can move back, a phase. That's fine. But it doesn't necessarily require more of an abundance of information. When I say wait, it's more of that dumping that we've got to be careful of.
I would agree. I think I've definitely gotten better in my coaching of, only over the last year really, but just giving someone the information that they need, walk up to the bay, monitor it with my eyes, obviously, and watch it, but not have to comment on every shot.
Sure.
So letting them hit 6, and I was like, how do you feel about this? Oh, X. Well, you're just not quite doing Z. You know what I mean? So come back over here. Everything's pretty close except for this, and let him go back again. Like when I deliver the information and tell them what I want to do and demonstrate it, and they're ready to go, they get back into the box. I literally will turn around and have some fucking beef jerky or a cup of coffee.
Right.
Like literally, I let them go in there, find their space, get their golf ball out. I let them go, and I'll just get in the camera and just follow them, face on, down the line, face on, down the line. I don't really, I'm going to say walk in the bay. I just let them get comfy. The environment's ready for them. The ball's in the right spot. The quad's in the right spot. They know where to put the ball. That's kind of something where I would have kind of stood there staunching over them, watching them, and them having such this fear of judgment of like, am I doing what he told me to do? Am I doing what I told him to do? Am I doing exactly what he told him to do? Because I'm not. He's going to tell me what to do. Sure. It's like I just let him hit 6 in a row or 7 in a row. Depends if I'm enjoying the jerky or the cup of coffee.
To self-organize is really powerful, and that's where I know you've spoken about that with your online. The fact that you can send information, let's say a video, an area or a part, and you're not there monitoring them. I mean, they're left to their own devices. Essentially, you're just allowing them to self-organize what you've told them. Hopefully, they can get pretty close visually to what you're trying to get them to do. But then there's there's certainly part of what they're taking, I should say, part of how they're organizing that information is still going to be them, not you. So whether they, and often I think if they get to 80% of what you've told them, and then they're able to kind of organize the rest through feel and let's say some of their natural hand-eye, you've done an amazing job. 80%'s a good number in my opinion, 70 to 80%. And sometimes we get caught up in the trying to refine the last 20% or 10%, and everything goes in the wrong direction. It goes south because we've taken away some of the feel. We've taken away some of, let's say, the natural ability.
I'll add to that in regards to, I'll say to students, because we essentially, when we're showing them on a tool, right, an analysis tool like Skillistat, we're showing them what 10 out of 10 looks like, Steve, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're always showing them 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I'm like, if you get close to it, we're okay. You don't have to be there. So I'll often use the pizza slice, right? I use shaft and elbow.
Yeah.
Get that club in there. Don't care if it's at the top. Don't care if it's at the bottom. It's in the pizza slice. Down the bottom, we're going to hit a draw. Up the top, we're going to a little fade. As long as it's in there. When people draw an individual line, you've got to be on this plane line. I think that's making it too hard and you're showing them 10 out of 10. I think that's overcoaching. Because then you got to tell the person, oh, but you're close to it, that's okay. And they're like, oh, hang on. I don't want to be close. I want to be on that. Fucking get me on that line. Where if I can create a parameter, they're like, when someone says to me, oh, where do you, like angle of attack, someone steep down 10 degrees. Where do you want me? I say, 5 to 7, 5 to 8.
Yeah.
You know, I know where I want them, but I'm not going to tell them because they're going to look at the numbers and chase perfect. Where if I get them to 6, they're going to be a fucking 10 times better golfer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think that's something as well that's important.
Absolutely. No, that's all good stuff.
All right. There you go.
No, I was just saying.
We've got a couple more subjects.
Okay, far away.
No, okay. I got 4 quick questions, right? Fire away questions.
Yep.
And then we're going to do back to basics putting segment coming up.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to say Odie Oates 00, swing patterns and matchups, and what did you learn from Dana Dahlquist?
What was the first?
Let's just say, what did you learn from Dana Dahlquist? Well, let's just say, what did you learn from hanging out with Dana Dahlquist?
Okay. So Dana's a great communicator. That's the first thing. I'm very interested in delivery. You know, when I go to watch other coaches, it's really technical stuff that I'm searching for. I'm very interested in how they deliver the message and how concise they are. And there's no doubt he's an extremely smart guy and he has a great hold on what he delivers. But how he delivers it is what I took from that. And so what I learned is keep getting more concise and precise with your delivery, because he was very good at telling me what I needed, what he wanted me to do, and really not going any further than that. Kind of really stayed with those key concepts. That was the in-person stuff. That was the input. Like because I did actually do a couple of hours with him. I can tell you a little about the technical stuff, but that's really what I learned from him in person.
When you watched him, did you watch him coach for a bit?
Yeah, I did about a half day.
Was he consistent with his delivery across everyone, or was it considerably different between each student?
No, extremely consistent, extremely, I would say, confident. And confident comes in definitely knowing what you want the student to do, and not having too much going on at one time. And what I've seen, what I noticed with him is he had a very structured way of where he would start and where he would end. A lot of what we already spoke about. That might be slightly different to how I do it or how you do it, but it's how it's how he does it, and it worked really nicely with his students. One area leads to another, and so he knows that if this is in line, this will affect this and will affect that.
Yeah.
So he wasn't jumping too many steps ahead, basically, in his delivery.
Well, that's one term I use. I love is he's got a good stranglehold of the order of implementation of information.
Yeah, correct.
So when to say it and what to say. A lot of us know what to say, but it's when to say it. And I love that. Let's talk about a little bit of technical stuff. He got you thinking a bit more about lateral, right?
Just more through the upper body. Lower body, if anything, was trying to get pressure back to the left earlier. So, we have those two centers, which would be lower and upper. You like to use the word hub.
Yep.
It was more about trying to get my lower hub, say, pressuring left earlier, while my upper hub stayed back for longer. So that's how I would describe that. Because I do have a tendency, this is a little bit through my back injury or just my general tendency, is I would create movement to the right through my lower body early and really not get back in time.
Yes.
And that leaves it actually leaves both my centers hanging back, which caused me to hit behind it. So, his take on that was to try and get, through different dynamics and movement patterns, trying to get me to pressure early left while keeping this, we'll say, stiff upper hub back for as long as possible, which helped tremendously with my driver, if I'm being open about that. I haven't been a great driver of the golf ball. I still have some, I kind of have two moves now. In my iron swing's a little different to my driver, just because I feel more confident, where I stay a little bit more on my left side with my irons, but I can be a bit more liberal with my driver if I want to, if I'm trying to sort of nuke one out there at my 111 to 12 club head speed max.
We're pretty close.
Yeah.
Tell me, okay, Tyrone, TPR Golf Academy. We all know Tyrone. We're in the same group chat.
Yep.
Just a bit of a throwaway line here. The learning journey from young pro to top coach. Not too sure what he means.
Oh, for me?
Yeah, for you.
Okay, learning journey from young pro to top coach.
You got 4 hours?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's just been, I was lucky. My very first mentor just said to me, go to the best and learn from the best. He said, find out who's doing it at the highest level. And I know this is not right for everyone, but unfortunately, I'm not that type of mind that can, let's say, come up with stuff. So everything I've learned has been from someone else. So, and it's something that I've always enjoyed doing. Just even to take Dana, for example, to go to the US, early last year and jump on a plane and spend those 2 or 3 days there. I enjoy doing that. I just like to challenge myself to learn new things. And, I'm probably guilty sometimes of not staying in areas long enough. But it's just part of, I guess, how my brain works. It likes to stay sharp that way. I think it stays sharp when I'm, engaging myself in kind of new areas. So I've definitely done that from, that age of 26, which I mentioned, where I jumped on a plane after my traineeship and spent a month in the US, freezing my butt off in Michigan, watching golf schools. Yeah. And it's just something that I'm like, I really enjoy doing that and hanging around smarter minds than me and learning from them, and eventually being able to give that back now. So that's kind of my journey. And obviously splitting my lifespan of coaching between Asia and Australia has been huge. And just being able to put myself out there has been great.
All right, put yourself out there. Thomas Green Golf Coaching. Do you know Thomas Green Golf Coaching?
I think so, yeah.
We've all got hundreds of golf coaches, right?
He's reached out, maybe. Yeah.
How to grow your presence on social media?
I always ask the question why, because I was on a call recently. What's the purpose of doing that? I'm probably not the best guy to ask because I don't think mine grows very much. I think Karod's a good one for that. I've always thought about not growing it, but what message do I want to put out there relating to what students am I trying to attract? What audience am I trying to attract? So for me, it was
interesting.
It was about, I felt like I had some good information that I've gathered over the years, and how do I put it out there? So that's what I use social media for. So it was golf schools, or it was my, let's say, full swing development, evolution. And then people caught on to that and they liked it. So all of a sudden I'm flying to Philippines to do a short game school because I put some information out there. And then all of a sudden I've delivered my short game schools in 8 different regions across Southeast Asia or Greater Asia. So it was just more about that thinking than I'm trying to grow it or I want to grow it. I know what makes it grow, but it's not what I post because it's not my goal. Like, I do know how to make it grow legitimately. It takes a little bit more work. I know what type of posts do
I've seen
work.
it. You were doing those kind of
like non-verbal.
And that's taking you forever. Those catchy minute things.
I enjoyed.
It's so
I enjoyed doing it, and I think it's good information. Don't get me wrong, but for me, it's like, this is the me. Like when you do see a video of me and I've got my earbuds in and you hear me talking and my hat's on, my hat's off, and I blurt something out, that's me in the most rawest format. That's, in my view, what I would want to put out the most, because that's what the student's going to get in front of me.
I agree.
That other stuff that you said, I mean, no disrespect, but anyone can do that. I do that all myself, by the way, but anyone can do that and grow the channel fast. And that does have implications, because if you want to be an online coach, I think it's really beneficial because you can attract that to Skillist or something like that. So for me, it's what, who am I trying to attract, or who do I want to work with? And it's largely students and coaches. So that's the information that you'll see. Some of it's quite boring.
So I tell you what, though, people really enjoy, like, I just been putting up, like, let's call it, at my last 20 posts, I've probably done 10 students, right?
Yeah.
Like, just their transformations, swing transformations, and then a little bit of work on how they did it.
Yeah.
People love that stuff. Like, I talk about all the time. Anyone can get in front of the camera. I can get my wife to get in front of the camera and talk about the bounce of a club.
Yep.
She doesn't know anything about golf. I can give her a script, but they want to see if you can coach,
Sure.
And I think that's really important. I like to document myself coaching because that's what I love doing. I'm proud of it. I love doing what I like to do. I don't love getting in front of the camera and talking about tips and tricks.
Sure.
I'm like, this is me coaching. How fun was this? Look what happened to Tim in Scottsdale, dropped 24 shots and he's flushing it. How good's that?
Yeah.
That's what I like doing because it's fun. That's like my life is to get up and help golf swings.
Sure.
Not get up in the morning. KG's life is to get up and think of a golf tip for social media, right? So it's different lives.
And I had Baden. I was on a call with Baden just last week, and he's like, "You've been a bit MIA, like you've been quiet." I've had a few people say that, and it's not because I'm not doing what I'm doing every day. It's just my focus is a little bit more into what we spoke about earlier with SG Performance, and if that means that
Yeah.
you might only hear from me 2 times a week versus 7 or 10, it's not a big deal for me.
If I'm quiet on social media, I'm busy.
That's that's my answer. Like, somehow the time's gotten so far away from me that that's the last thing that I need to do right now.
Yeah, exactly. People say to me, I'm fucking busy. All right, Ewan McNeil, young pro from Jakarta. He's reached out to me a few times.
Come and chatted me a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, nice young fellow.
Yep.
Don't go too detailed because we've got one more thing to do, right? Biggest influences. Mentors from long game, short game, putting. Give me names. Don't tell me why. Just give me names. Long game.
Andreas Carli.
Yes.
Morad.
Recent guest on the podcast.
I'll say Morad
stuff.
Is that enough? Or do you want more of a long list?
Yep. Short game.
For putting, yeah. So I'd say James Ridyard, Mark Sweeney,
yes.
Phil Kenyon.
Yes. For putting. Yeah, I would agree. I knew those answers from you. I've spoken to this before. All right, Ewan, hope that kind of... I'm sure you're following all those guys there, Ewan, anyway. If you're not, give us a message. I'll tell you who they are. All right, SG.
Yes.
We've got the Back to Basics putting segment now. Back to Basics putting segment, one of the sponsors of the podcast. It's a putting mirror designed by Richard Woodhouse and Grant Field, used by Cam Smith. It's got a 15-degree putting arc on it. TM15 below for 15% off your order. Support those who support the podcast. In the Back to Basics putting segment, SG, have you got a putting tip or putting exercise that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I find the biggest challenge, like when I'm working with better players, it seems the 7 to 12 foot range is what tends to stand out to me the most, because I feel like they can do a lot of stuff indoors and hit it in the putting mat inside of that, say, 7 foot range, and they're only having to aim right edge, left edge to make that work on the golf course, which they can manage pretty well. The 7 to 12 I feel like is really, really tricky, and because for most the stats start to shift at less than 50%. Yeah. So I created something during COVID, which was I guess you could call it a little like putting test or a little challenge, which would be 18 holes. I would have distances with slopes on them. So we'll say a 7 foot, 8 foot, basically for 18 holes. I'd have strokes gained at the end. And they literally just had to mark what they felt like they ticked and what they crossed on that putt. So that might look like start line, green reading speed. And so they hit the first putt. Let's say the read was good. The ball started on line. Maybe they put a marker there so they can see where the ball starts, or a gate if they want to do that. But they go through the read.
Yep.
Okay, they hit the start line, which a lot of good golfers will do. The ball travels on the high side and finishes, we'll say 2.5 foot past. Okay, speed miss, long. So we have a tick-tick cross, essentially. So we have a tick on the read. We have a tick on the start line. We have a tick on the read, and we have a cross on the speed, which was long. So we just go through that process for 18 holes, and we see a pattern. We often would see a speed pattern, short, long. And in a lot of cases, which is where I really like this drill, we see a read pattern miss. So, left to rights are constantly missing, let's say high side and vice versa. So that helps me to be a lot more specific with information. And even stats sheets, I should say stats program that we use often don't have that level of detail. And that just, again, helps me to go straight to the source of what I need to focus on with that student. So students can create that, and they could write that up I can even send it to them if they want, have that sheet on a PDF, but you could literally put that in your phone and do that a couple of times a week, and you'll see patterns that this coach can help you with straight away.
I love that. It's an interesting statistic that pops up on Draw More Circles, isn't it? Is that 7 to 12 feet. It's just, it's a big problem area for a lot of golfers in regards to, their goals. It really sticks out. I really like that. It's really, really good way. Once again, we're measuring, right, aren't we? Yep. And we're finding out, because when someone says to you that, I suck at 7 to 12 feet, statistics show me, let's get a little bit more detail at it. Sure. Is it speed? Is it is it the left to right? Is it right to left? Is it downhill? Is it uphill? At least this way here we can measure it a little bit better, because you don't just suck. You do some stuff really, really well. There's just probably a problem area there that's hurting it. You might be 20% on the left to righters and 60% on the right to lefters. You're good. So let's just bring that left to righter up.
Yeah, and as a coach, we can take them on the green, do that for 10 holes, watch their start line, and just note that down for them. It's going to take 20 minutes, and then we have all the data there ready to go.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, mate, thanks for giving us that tip there on the Back to Basics putting segment. Support those who support the podcast. Lots of people are purchasing them, Steve. I see the email notifications coming through, and you get 15% discount. It comes in a nice little case. To me, if you're a coach, right, or you're a player, I'm going to say right now, there is no better training aid than a mirror on the ground, because A, you are getting direct feedback in how that putter should be swinging, right, relative to where you want it to be, without having to use any crazy technology. Sure. You can just you can put your phone on top and identify and get immediate feedback to where you need to be. So I think it's crazy. Harrison Endicott was talking about using one and how he was he first got one. He had all the tees on the outside and he was ding 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 ding, right. Knocking all the tees trying to get through the thing, right? And this PGA Tour player playing the Australian Open at the time, right? So you're not going to get better feedback, and I think it's an absolute no-brainer. And if you're a coach and you're going to a putting green and you're giving a putting lesson, we know we're running to the putting green. What's this guy going to do? Chuck your mirror down, get your tripod out, and just use it as a baseline. And it helps identify when you show people on a camera, it's like, oh, your putter's coming really far in. Well, they can see it because the green line is showing them it's not. Yep. You know what I mean? Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Right, so support those that support the podcast. Thanks for that tip there in the Back to Basics putting segment. SG. Have you got anything else for us? You got anything else for us? Any more acronyms?
I probably have actually, but
MDMA.
If we go down that rabbit hole, we could be here for too long.
I love it, mate. It's been awesome. You've been so good with your time. You can even tell it's getting nice and light there. The sun's coming in the back behind you there. It's getting brighter. Yeah. Mate, we appreciate you coming on. Lots of coaches, lots of people, we really appreciate how much you share and put out there, because we learn a lot. When you talk about mentors, people we're talking about through this, I would definitely say early stages when I reached out to you on my coaching, you really offered me a little bit of a blueprint and a systematic approach to my coaching without you even kind of knowing about it and learning. So, no, I think you're definitely doing a good thing out there, and I think what you're doing with helping better the coaches is fantastic. I think it's really, really important what you're doing, and it's more important than helping the students in my eyes right now. You've done enough helping the students, mate. Get out there and keep helping the coaches. So we appreciate you coming on the Golf Coach podcast. And the coaches want to get you. I'll put all the links below to your website and to your stuff there. Awesome. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Pleasure. Chat soon.